What's going on, everybody? And welcome into another edition of the 2 Minute Drill podcast. I am James Grande. And no, we are not joined by Dan Malin this week. Dan is in the air as we speak on his private jet being flown across the country by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Yes, his favorite actor, if you ask him or if you ask me, definitely his favorite actor. I am joined by the Nebraskan himself. Maybe not born there, but bred into being a Cornhusker. Matt Sells. Matt, what's going on, brother? Thanks for filling in this week.
I'm good. I was definitely not born here, nor do I think I'm actually bred into being a Cornhusker. I don't actually like the University of Nebraska, but I'm good. It's been kind of a weird weather situation. We had like 70-mile-an-hour winds all weekend here, so like I was planning on raking the leaves, and then they blew themselves all over. So, I'm good. Got some time to watch a lot of sports this weekend. MLB playoffs, NFL games. Obviously, NASCAR and F1 happened, but NFL games were nuts this weekend.
Yeah, it's seemingly been the case, I'd say, this year in general. I don't think a lot of truth be told, I don't think a lot of people projected the New York Giants to be 6-1. I don't think a lot of people project the New York Jets to be 5-2. I don't think anybody expected the NFC South to everyone be under 500 7 games through the year, with the Atlanta Falcons tied for first place. So there's a lot of craziness going on in the NFL. And kind of to speak to that craziness this week, Matt, we were unfortunately bit with the injury bug. And there was more big names this week than I think there had been in weeks past. And I think that's really where the story of this week lies. And so let's dive into the injuries this week. I think there's a lot of fantasy relevant stuff that happened, unfortunately. And you know what? It's football. It does take place, and we have to be able to adapt and move on with our teams. So let's start in New York with standout rookie Breece Hall. His season coming to an end, officially listed with a torn ACL and torn meniscus, and was well on his way to the rookie of the year. And that unfortunately comes to an end after 4 carries, 72 yards, another big touchdown. But we have to pivot. And the pivot seemingly is Michael Carter, a guy that we were familiar with last year. The Jets took in the 4th round of last year's draft. Looked good at times, and then looked good at times this year. Has a couple 2-touchdown games, is decent in the passing game. What's your take on Michael Carter for the rest of the season? He's presumably the RB1 with the likes of Ty Johnson filling in passing downs. But what do you make of Michael Carter, and where do you think he fits in the landscape of running backs rest of the season?
I think he's perfectly plug and play. In
Yep.
fact, I wasn't sold on Breece Hall taking over the job at the very outset of the season. I mean, obviously his play dictated that be the case. But the other side of it is Zach Wilson isn't throwing to the wide receivers.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're just not at all. In the game against the Packers, I think the wideouts saw 6 targets total. Like, he's just throwing everything to the running back. So if that's the case, may as well go get the guy who's next in line for targets, which is Michael Carter. He is a very good running back. He was last year in his rookie year. And I don't foresee that changing very much. I mean, it's the same. They're not going to change the offense. So may as well go get the next guy up, as they say.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things to note with Carter. Yes, Breece Hall was the definitive running back 1 in New York after a few weeks, but Michael Carter still never played less than 42% of snaps. So it was still always close in terms of snap share, even though Breece Hall was so good. He was just such a home run threat that every time Breece Hall touched the ball, seemingly he was on his way to a 60-yard gain, a 70-yard gain, an 80-yard gain. Michael Carter isn't that guy, but we've seen on multiple occasions him be able to tote the rock. He has 4 different occasions this year with 10 or more carries. Only 2 touchdowns. He's only fumbled once. He has a 9-target game on the resume this year. So again, he is someone that can produce in the passing game and on the ground. And I think you're right. I think he's a lower end RB2, maybe a high end RB3 on a weekly basis. the Jets offense did change from Joe Flacco to Zach Wilson. They trusted Flacco to throw the ball. They haven't done that with Wilson. So I expect a lot of rushing attack, just like you said with Michael Carter. DK Metcalf, interesting injury news with Metcalf because he is listed week to week, okay? But he has what is the official diagnosis with he has a knee injury that he's planning to rehab. It's a patellar tendon injury that he does not need surgery on. And I guess it's worth noting because he's week to week, but like patellar tendon, like only week to week, he's just going to be rehabbing. Like if this is a multi-week injury, we saw Marquise Goodwin score twice in week 7. Is that maybe in deeper format someone we'd be looking at, or is it, it's Tyler Lockett and then it's Kenneth Walker and then it's kind of everyone else, and we don't need to really touch this situation?
So a couple things. First, the patellar tendon is usually what they use to graft in place of a torn ACL, as Breece Hall is about to find out.
Right.
But the advantage to a tendon is if it's not completely torn, it will regrow. Like it will grow back itself over time. So hence the reason why he's probably just rehabbing it is that it's likely not completely torn or it's just strained. But it does seem like something that could be a nagging thing, and he's not going to want to play until it's 100%. So, we're still looking at a few weeks here, most likely. So, in that regard, yeah, I think in deeper formats, Goodwin is a guy that I would go pick up. Look, Geno Smith has been arguably in the conversation for MVP candidate at this point based on his numbers, right? Like, we all want to laugh about it. I mean, we all want to laugh about it, but at the same time, he's being productive. So, look, this passing attack is predicated on a 2 wide receiver look with the running game also in play with Kenneth Walker, who looked phenomenal.
He sure did.
He's like one of only 2 Seattle rookie running backs to have a game like he did, and the last one was Kurt Warner, a first rounder in the 1983 or 84 draft. Not Kurt with a K, Kurt with a C. He was drafted in the same draft as like Marino and Jim Kelly and John Elway. So with that being said, it's Lockett and Goodwin and then Kenneth Walker on the backfield. So yes, in deeper formats, I would pick up Marquise Goodwin because look, they're going to pass. They've been passing the ball this year. This is at least the second time they put up 35 plus points in a game. I don't really see it slowing down, to be honest. And with the rest of their schedule, they're going to need to put up some points. So, yeah, I would go pick him up and then just watch what happens with Metcalf and when he comes back.
I agree. Deep performance only, 12-team leagues. If it's like a large bench or 14-team leagues and in those type of leagues, I think
like
you
could starting 3 wide receivers.
Yep.
He's not really anything but a bye week fill-in.
Agreed.
In 2 wide receivers.
Agreed. Well, a team that is on a bye week, and this is a perfect transition to maybe someone who would want Marquise Goodwin, is the Los Angeles Chargers. They head into a week 8 bye. And I think this couldn't be better timing for them because the Mike Williams ankle injury did not look good yesterday. It is reported, Mike Williams told reporters after the game that it was a sprain. There will be x-rays and stuff on Monday to find out the exact extent of this. So by the time this podcast is up, you may know that it's broken or something other along the lines happened to it. But as of right now, it's a sprain. With Keenan Allen back, and we don't know. It's hard to speculate at this time how long Williams' absence will be because they are on a bye. Like, we don't have to worry about it right away. Keenan Allen was back this week, 2 targets. They did not have Josh Palmer. He was out with concussion, but it's been a general 1 to 2 week absence with Josh Palmer or with concussions this year. So could we see Palmer back after the bye week? Sure. What do we do if we lost Mike Williams? Is there anyone on the Chargers worth picking up if Mike Williams is expected to miss time? Is Josh Palmer someone that, when he's back that we'd be interested in? Josh Palmer was garnering a lot of attention a lot of Justin Herbert's attention. Is Josh Palmer worth any love in deeper formats if Mike Williams is going to miss time?
If Mike Williams is going to miss time, then yes. But it's like we're not expecting Mike Williams numbers from Josh Palmer.
No.
It's likely not going to happen. I think going forward, the Chargers offense is going to be more of a week-to-week game plan, much like we see from the Patriots. Because let's face it, this past week it was a lot of Austin Eckler.
Yep. So much Austin Eckler.
Clearly that was dictated by the fact that Mike Williams went down.
Yep.
And Keenan Allen didn't look to be 100%. Otherwise, we would have gotten more than 2 targets. And they didn't really have Josh Palmer. So that could have done it. But they were also very good last year when they were feeding Austin Eckler quite a lot in the backfield, both catching and rushing. So I would say in deeper formats, you can pick up Josh Palmer if Mike Williams isn't going to play in week 9, which will be the next opportunity for him to step on the field. But again, we're not expecting huge numbers from Josh Palmer. Last year, he was kind of like a 1 or 2 hit wonder where he had a couple of big games and then just flat disappeared for the rest of the
time. Yeah, Josh Palmer 2 weeks ago, 12 targets against Denver, with Mike Williams being shadowed by Patrick Surtain, and there was no Keenan Allen. So no Keenan.
And they couldn't run the ball because it's Denver, so
could not run the ball. But you know what? 2 weeks in a row, they haven't really been able to run the ball. Austin Eckler had another big game in the passing game. Yes, he scored, but seemingly scores the touchdowns are easy to Austin Eckler. I mean, that's nothing. But they're just relying on Justin Herbert to two straight games with 50+ attempts. So just some consideration for Palmer, I do think, in deeper formats. If Keenan Allen after the bye still isn't 100%. I mean, he has only played 2 games this year, and there's no Mike Williams. Maybe a look for Palmer. Another couple injuries to the wide receiver position. What do you think hurts more? Losing Amon-Ra St. Brown to a concussion. This is the second time this year Amon-Ra St. Brown will be injured, or Allen Lazard to the shoulder. Lazard had been looking good. Green Bay's offense has not been looking good. Amon-Ra St. Brown had been looking good, and now Detroit's offense looks inept over their last 2 games. Like, assess both injuries. Like, Lazard's a shoulder, Amon-Ra St. Brown, hard to tell again with concussions, like what and how fast they can return. Like, who did the spotter see him stumble? Is it going to be a 2-week absence? Is it going to be a 3-week absence? It's really hard to like speculate with concussions, but like pretty hard to lose St. Brown again if you're a fantasy owner. Are either of these guys maybe like someone you're trying to float out in like trades, just given like this is also Lazard opened the year with an injury. Now this is his second injury. St. Brown was injured. Now he has a concussion. Like, are these 2 guys maybe you're trying to float out especially if you're desperate for wins, maybe 2 guys you're trying to float out for trades?
Possibly. I would probably take a better I would be more likely to trade for Amon-Ra than Allen Lazard because concussions are shorter term than shoulder issues. I would say for the fantasy landscape that the loss of Amon-Ra St. Brown hurts more, generally speaking, than Allen Lazard. A couple of reasons. One, there are a few other targets that have been equally targeted as Lazard in Green Bay. Romeo Doubs has been doing pretty well. They still have both running backs that get a decent amount of targets out of the backfield, and the running game, which gets leaned on. Is Christian Watson coming? Is he back yet? We're coming back soon for Green Bay.
Not back, but
he should be back soon, though. I believe.
Yeah, I believe the injury shouldn't be a long
right.
And they're in on. There's reports that they're in on Chase Claypool. We don't know like what the extent is. The deadline is this, I believe,
it's Tuesday after week 8.
Yep, Tuesday after week 8.
4 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
And yeah, there are reports that they are quote all in, but I don't know what that give up a first round for Chase Claypool because that doesn't make any sense. But with Amon-Ra St. Brown out, there's nobody worthwhile to pass to in Detroit, including TJ Hawkinson whenever he's healthy, because that guy can't get open.
Right.
Jared Goff has no help. That offensive line isn't great. And by the way, DeAndre Swift was supposed to be back for week 7 and then wasn't.
Right.
And if there's no Amon-Ra, then they can stack the box and stop DeAndre Swift, so that kills all fantasy value for everybody in Detroit. Whereas Green Bay is just killing it for themselves because they've decided not to play offense very well. But that's that's not really because of Alan Lazard. That's more so because I think people have figured it out and their wide receivers are no longer any good. So yeah, between the two, I would try to trade for Amon-Ra still. Um, and his loss definitely hurts more in a general sense. Also, by the way, let's see if we can't get his brother some looks down in Chicago, because Equinemius could use some targets. Yeah,
Yeah.
brothers, by the way, in case you didn't know.
Yeah. Well, Amon Ra is definitely the standout of the family.
Yeah.
So
Also, there's like an Osiris. Like they had a very Egyptian. There's like 4 brothers, and all of them are some variety of Egyptian god.
I like it. I mean, it's cool. Shout out to the St. Browns
Yeah,
and their parents.
There's Osiris St. Brown, then there's Osiris Adrian Amon Ra,
Oh my gosh.
then there's Amon Ra Julian St. Brown, and then Equinemius.
Okay, well, maybe the creativity ran out a little bit. The juices weren't there when you start naming your kids the same names. But you know what? That's for the St. Browns to figure out, not for us to figure out. One more injury we'll touch on and then we'll move on. Is David Njoku officially ruled out 2 to 5 weeks with the ankle sprain? The current in half PPR formats, tight end 6, only behind Kelsey, Andrews, Taysom Hill, Zach Ertz, and TJ Hawkinson. If you're an Njoku owner, I'm just looking at some ESPN roster ships, and like there's a bunch of guys rostered under 50%, but like who are we looking at? Is it Hayden Hurst? Is it Gesicki? Is it Noah Fan? Is it Hunter Henry? Evan Ingram? These are all guys under 50% rostered. Like the Giants just lost rookie Daniel Bellinger to an eye socket injury. He was looking promising. Here are 2 guys, I think, Matt. I want to get your take. 2 guys, if you are a David Njoku owner, that you can likely replace right now on the waiver wire. Ready?
Yep.
I think these are going to be 2 potentially popular names. Cade Otton in Tampa Bay, even though Tampa Bay looks dead. Cade Otton has been pretty good when he's been on the field, and Cameron Brate hasn't. Cameron Brate already with 2 concussions this year. And Greg Dulcich, I think everybody knows about Greg Dulcich at this point. Still just 7.8% rostered in ESPN leagues. Thoughts on Otton or Dulcich? Any love in either of those camps? I know, Brady is old as dirt and Brett Rippin through this week, but Russell Wilson expected to return next week, according to Nathaniel Can't Hack It. What are your thoughts on Otton and Dulcich if you have David Njoku?
Yeah, that's an excellent Berman-esque nickname there for Nathaniel Hackett, by the way. I would lean Dulcich only because I think he has a longer track history this year, at least, of producing. He's been really the only one you could really count on the last few weeks in Denver, aside from Brandon McManus and their defense. The one thing in Otton's favor is that Brady loves to get the ball out fast, and the offensive line isn't giving him any time, and the tight end runs the shortest route, which, takes the least amount of time. So I'm fine with both because, look, tight end is a massive crapshoot at this point. Like, if you're losing a top 6 guy, I would literally just stream them or just give up on the position wholeheartedly. But yeah, I would lean Dulcich in this one because at least, even though the Broncos offense is so terrible, at least he's still getting targets and looks regardless of who's under center for them. So I would lean that way.
Yeah, 9 targets this week. Love it. Lots of routes run, lots of juicy options, and lots of locks there for Greg Dulcich too. Much better hair than Cade Otton. So if that's the deciding factor, Yeah, if that is something that weighs heavily into your decisions, it's obviously Dulcich season. Let's move on to the Panthers backfield. What the heck do we do? Because Donta Foreman looked great in his stint on the field, 15 carries, 118 yards, 2 receptions, 27 yards. But his opportunities, not that they came because Chuba Hubbard got hurt, but Chuba Hubbard tweaked his ankle. They said that he would have returned if needed, but because Carolina routed those Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he didn't need to return. But 9 for 63 and a touchdown for Chuba Hubbard, 2 reception in his camp as well. A backfield that nobody liked heading into the game and nobody thought could run on Tampa Bay ran all over Tampa Bay. What do we make of Carolina's backfield? And are either of these guys startable? And I'm not going to call them running back twos because they're not, unless the other one got injured. Are either flex options moving forward?
Well, let me preface it by saying I have Donta Foreman in a couple of leagues. I picked him up like immediately following the trade.
Okay.
And I got beat in the ones that I went to. The leagues that I went to last, I got beat on the waiver wire to pick him up. So I got him in a few leagues. I did not start him this week because I didn't think the matchup was great, and I also had some, in one league I think I have Aaron Jones and McCaffrey and Zeke ahead of him. So,
Right.
in another league I think it was like Damian Pierce and some other actual startable running backs. However, going forward, I would say that Foreman is a flex option. I think Chuba Hubbard might be too in the right thing, but I think Foreman is going to be the guy that gets the bulk of the work in this backfield. Look, he was the guy that got some work last year too. He was number 2 in the depth chart coming into this year. So if McCaffrey got injured, he was going to be the guy to fill in. So I'm going to go with Foreman in this one, but it's clearly still a matchup
Yep.
based play. You're not going to plug and play him, right? Because that offense is terrible.
That offense will be led by PJ Walker in week 8, just officially announced he will start no matter if Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold are healthy. PJ Walker getting the nod. Just for snap count purposes, and yes, again, Chuba Hubbard was injured, did not return to this game. But Deonta Foreman, 27 snaps, was in for 10 passing downs, 15 rushing attempts, as mentioned. Chuba Hubbard, 23 snaps, so 4 less than Deonta Foreman, but again, injury related potentially. Ran 1 more route than Deonta Foreman, but had 6 less carries for the breakdown. So I think both are viable pickups. I think both are probably going to be popular waiver claims because no matter who is under center for Carolina is a run first attempt or offense because they don't have the weapons to throw the ball now that they traded Robbie Anderson, now that they traded Christian McCaffrey. Moving on to another backfield. Gus Edwards only owned in 16% of ESPN leagues. We know J.K. Dobbins is on IR. Gus Edwards came off the IR, and man, he looked good. He looked really, really good in his return. 16 carries right off the bat. No work-related limitations there for Gus Edwards. 66 yards and 2 tuds. What is your thoughts on Gus Edwards on waiver wire, and how much fab would you potentially burn on Edwards this week?
I'm picking him up
Yep.
as many places as I can. Look, he's a legit starting running back in an offense that loves to run it. And regardless of, there's all this, Lamar Jackson's going to steal carries. Okay, then why have they had like fantasy relevant running backs the entire time that Lamar Jackson has been there, right? They need to run the ball because their wide receivers aren't great at separating, and Mark Andrews needs all the help he can get in the middle of the field to get the looks he gets. So I'm all over Gus Edwards. If for some reason Kenneth Walker is still available, which I highly doubt that's the case, I would go Walker over Edwards, but Edwards is the top fab guy for me this week, and I'm not even sure it's close.
Yeah. he was definitely the RB1 in Baltimore. If you want to look at how the rest of their position broke down, because we know that Baltimore likes running multiple backs in games. I mean, we saw it with Dobbins and Edwards during Dobbins' rookie year. Justice Hill ran the most routes. He ran 7. Edwards ran 4, but Edwards played 23 snaps. Justice Hill played 20. So something to keep in mind. Kenyon Drake, 17 snaps, 11 carries for what that's worth as well. We had a Paris Campbell note here, Matt, but I want to pivot. The Indianapolis Colts are benching Matt Ryan due to a shoulder injury. Apparently, he has a shoulder strain. Maybe he shouldn't throw 60 times a week. But Frank Reich has also come out and said that Sam Ehlinger is to start at quarterback for the remainder of the year. That is the report from Frank Reich, who is definitely going to get fired because Matt Ryan, I think, is making the most money out of anybody else at the quarterback position this year.
They also gave up like draft capital to get him.
So what is happening? I mean, look, Indy stinks, right? Like they're bad. They're not giving Jonathan Taylor enough carries. He had 10 carries yesterday. That is absolute.
This makes me feel great for telling the guy that got offered. Somebody messaged me in our Discord and said, "Hey, this guy wants to offer me Kenneth Walker for Jonathan Taylor." I said, "Yeah, take that." So this makes me feel super good about telling him to take that deal because Taylor's facing 14 dude boxes, even though you're not allowed to play 14 guys on defense.
Yeah, this makes me feel horrible because I traded for Jonathan Taylor in a league.
Yeah, I took him in a league too because I figured he'd be the lock RB1.
Yep.
Not great.
So I wanted to talk about Paris Campbell, but like, does this? I guess
I'm not Campbell's been anybody from Indy.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think if you're a Jonathan Taylor owner, you're obviously playing him on a week-to-week basis. If you're a Michael Pittman owner, you're probably playing him, but like
I'm not playing Campbell or Pierce at this point.
I mean, that's let's move on. That's sad because Campbell has like 25 targets in the last 2 weeks, and
I know, but it's easy to get that many targets when you're
agreed.
Quarterback is hurling it 90 times a game.
Agreed. Sam Ehlinger, not that guy, pal. As that one guy from the deli said.
Don't the Colts run the most amount of offensive plays a game at this point, I think? And the vast majority of those are passing?
I mean, the thing is, yes, correct. But Matt Ryan has like 9 interceptions and 7 fumbles, or it's the other way around. That cannot happen. But for them to announce Sam Ehlinger as the starter for the remainder of the year, oh man, it is dark days in Indy. But somewhere where it's not dark days, Matt, and I'm going to just give myself a little pat back here. In New York, Giants and Jets looking good. Buffalo too, technically the only New York team. All 3 teams looking pretty good, but let's go to the Giants. The New York Football Giants, 6-1, currently go into the soft part of the schedule, if you want to call it that. They got through their tough stretch, 6-1. Daniel Jones, Matt, coming off maybe not his best game as a pro, but hard to argue against how good it was. 202 yards passing and a touchdown, nothing to write home about. 107 yards on the ground and another touchdown for Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was fantastic against Jacksonville. They had 200-yard rushers. I got to ask it, Matt, and I think it's a viable question, and it's not a homer question. It is just based on what's happening right now. QB8, Daniel Jones, or QB10 rather, sorry. QB10, Daniel Jones gets Seattle, gets Detroit, and who's the third? It's Seattle, it's Detroit, and it's Houston for the next 3 games, okay? Is Daniel Jones a top 12 quarterback for the next 3 weeks? That silence, he doesn't want to say yes, but his silence, I can already see it coming, is because it's a yes. And you could say it. It's okay.
It's hard to argue. I'm pretty sure I could put up 400 yards passing against Detroit's non-existent defense. Seattle hasn't exactly stopped anybody either. I mean, they just gave up a decent day to Justin Herbert, who was down like 4 of his top weapons, which is fittingly what Daniel Jones' entire season has been.
Correct.
And then Houston, I don't know, man. Like, could they lay an egg against Houston? Because like everybody seems to lay eggs randomly against Houston, maybe. But he comes into this stretch as a QB 10, and now he gets 3 non-existent pass defenses. So yeah, I think it's reasonable to keep playing him, as weird as that sounds. And I want to go wash my mouth out with mouthwash at the moment, but look, you got to take the results and you got to see the upcoming matchups, and they all gel together. So why not roll with it?
I agree, and I'm not just saying that. Daniel Jones, as much as he's not like throwing as many touchdowns as we'd like, I think the like Wan'Dale Robinson being healthy has obviously helped the passing attack. We now have 3 passing touchdowns in the last 2 games because of it. He has 3 games of 60 or more rushing yards, including the 100 yards yesterday. 3 rushing touchdowns too, Matt. Like, he is a dual threat. As much as he's not going to be the 300-yard passer, he's not. He has 217 yards as his
Right.
most this year. He is a 100-yard threat on the ground, as we saw yesterday. He is a touchdown threat on the ground, as we saw yesterday, and we've seen on a couple occasions this year. And the quarterback position has been dreadful, and I think that's probably more important than Daniel Jones being like really good.
Right. I was also going to throw that out, that this is relative to what everybody else is doing, right? Like Tom Brady sucks.
Rodgers,
terrible. The Pats, who the hell knows what they're doing with Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones or whatever. Jimmy G's been terrible. The Broncos have been terrible.
Matt Stafford.
It's bad. The Texans are terrible. Basically, nobody. Who the hell is the Saints quarterback? Because that doesn't really. So, like, there you go. Like, half the league, their quarterback sucks. So, if he only has to beat half the league, he's already there. So,
well, Daniel Jones, QB1. Let's just jump into one more segment, and we'll stay on the QB position here. I thought it'd be a fun little game to end the year, because Joe Burrow has been just, I mean, I don't know what to really say. He's been incredible. I think we wrote off the Bengals after their week 2. Was it the week 2 loss against the Jets? We just wrote them off. We said they were dead. They stink. They're not coming back. And then, Joe Burrow said, okay, I'm taking notes. I'm smoking my cigars, looking real cool in the back of the locker room, taking notes on what everyone else is saying. And, Joe Burrow since then has responded quite well. Back-to-back 3 touchdown games, 4 touchdowns, including 4 touchdowns. Yeah. I mean, 4 touchdowns. Yeah. Okay. So here's the game we're going to play. It's going to be Joe Burrow versus another quarterback for the remainder of the year. Okay. We're going to, and this is fantasy specific. Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson rest of season.
I will take Joe Burrow. Look, I think it should be known that I am not the biggest Lamar Jackson fan. I think he's Michael Vick 2.0. I'm not sure that, like, the book on Lamar Jackson is if you contain him and you make him pass, you can beat him, right? That's what's come to light this year. I will take Joe Burrow and his weapons and over Lamar Jackson the rest of the year.
Joe Burrow or Jalen Hurts rest of the year?
As much as this pains me to say, I think I'd probably take Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the lean for Jalen Hurts just, and it's very close with Lamar Jackson too. I think Jalen Hurts has been a better passer this year. Has also not finished worse than QB 14 on the year, where Lamar Jackson was a QB 22 this week, and that's without Monday Night Football factored in. So, I too would take Jalen Hurts. Justin Hurts.
Do we really expect Monday Night Football to be a quarterback show between Justin Fields and?
We might see some Matt Gritty. We might see some Matt Gritties out there. You never know. Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert?
I will take Joe Burrow.
Same. And then I think these are going to be the toughest two on the board, because we're going to head to Arrowhead. Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes?
I will take Patty Mahomes.
Very close though. Currently QB2 and QB3.
It's really close, but the game planning that Andy Reid does on a weekly basis,
it's sickening. It's
basically always puts Mahomes in a position to win and put up big numbers no matter what the opposing defense is going to do to him.
And then we're both taking Josh Allen over Joe Burrow, right?
Yeah, that's not even close.
So I think realistically, it feels like
I would put Joe Burrow probably
QB4.
QB4?
Depending on your
I had Mahomes, Allen,
and Hurts.
Hurts ahead of him.
It depends on. I think it's going to depend on where you're ranking Joe Burrow, depending on how you feel about Lamar Jackson.
I would put him ahead of Lamar.
So I think
behind him.
I think Burrow is QB4 if you think he is a better option than Lamar, and he's QB5 if you think Lamar is a better option than him. I think that Lamar has more upside than Joe Burrow, because there are times where Lamar Jackson looks unstoppable as a passer and a runner. And although Joe Burrow has scored a rushing touchdown in 3 straight games, he will never break off an 80-yard touchdown like Lamar could on the ground. So I think that it depends on, Burrow has been safer this year. He has 5 top 7 finishes, 6 of 7 he's finished a QB1. Lamar has done it only 4 times, but he's twice finished QB1 overall. So we'll see. I think the Burrow-Lamar Jackson debate as like QB4 or 5 is interesting. But just I wanted to get your take on Joe Burrow, because I think as great as he was at the end of last year and in the postseason, I don't think people realize that he's been top 5 QB, top 3 as of right now in fantasy. So shout out Joe Burrow, shout out the Bengals offense. They're humming right now. And shout out to you, Matt Sells, the Nebraska native, the Kansas State alum, the NASCAR 3-time Writer of the Year. Big shout out to you for filling in for Dan Malin on this week's edition of 2-Minute Drill. Big shout out to the FA Nation for listening to this week's edition of the 2-Minute Drill. And for all intents and purposes, as long as Dan Malin arrives back on that plane that the Rock sent him on safely, we will be back next week. Thank you again, Matt, for filling in, and we'll see you guys in week